gusto. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to be here. Before I get into the project, I'll just tell you how this project came about. I have a love for coffee, and we have a local coffee roaster in Jacksonville, Florida, that sources coffee from origin. So I work in the conservation department at the Jacksonville Zoo and Gardens, and I wanted to do a project in conservation and sustainability with coffee. So I went to my friend at the coffee shop and I asked him if he knew any coffee producers that would be interested in moving towards agroforestry, moving towards shade-grown coffee, and he put me in touch with Herbert from the Differentiated Coffee Growers of Northern Tolima, and that is a nonprofit association of coffee farmers that produce specialty coffee in the northern part of Tolima. From there, we worked to put this project together, and here are some of the objectives. It's really important for my institution for this project to be led by the community. We don't want to come into the community and tell them what they need to do. We want to come into the community and ask them what they need so we can all achieve the goals and objectives that we'd like to get to together. So we've been working with this association of coffee farmers to come up with some ideas on how to increase income on farms and allow farmers the opportunity to think more about planting trees and sustainability rather than just being hyper focused on the next crop and just making it by. So one of the things we're going to be doing next week, which I'm really excited about, is a botanical expedition in the area. We're going to, Pablo, Patrick, and I are going to visit some forest fragments. We're going to take some herbarium voucher specimens, which is exciting because we looked in the National Herbarium in Bogota and the herbarium here, and from this region there are only 5 specimens. So there's a lot that we need to document to understand the diversity that persists in this area. Another thing that we want to do is make native plants available. We'd like to grow native plants and give them out in the community, along with some education about how to use the plants to bring nutrients up out of the soil and reduce inputs on farms like fertilizers and pesticides. We want to promote agroforestry with these relationships that we build with farms. And in the end, many years from now, we hope to have a functional forest in this community, at least a patchwork of functional forests that can tie different areas of forest fragments together and create corridors for wildlife. And here is a slide in Spanish. If everyone would like to, please forgive my grammatical errors in this translation if there are any, but I'll give you just a second to look through that. Working with farmers, we've discovered that one of the hurdles for fetching or getting a higher price for their coffee crops was the varieties that were being grown. So we've worked with a local farm there to build a plant nursery where we are growing specialty varieties of coffee like Geisha and Colombian Rosado. And we'll be giving those plant starts out to farms for them to replant their coffee fields with coffee varieties that are going to be that are more desirable in the specialty market. So yeah, the community-led approach is what really got us here for the need for a nursery, the need to kind of refresh these farms with varieties that are more desirable. And here you can see me and Juli depulping the semillas and prepping them for planting in the nursery. Here you can see the nursery. We carved some terraces out of the mountainside and built some nice heavy-duty tables. I think each of these tables holds around 3,000 or 4,000 plants. And we had a really great crew. Herbert's got a really great crew that works on his farms, and they took some time out of their day to help us construct this nursery, which was really awesome. This is on a farm in between Palo Cabildo and Casa Bianca in an area called Agua de Dios. Many of the farms that sell their coffee to the differentiated coffee growers of northern Tolima, which I will now refer to as CD&T. Many of the farmers that sell their coffee to CD&T are hyper-local to this area. So we decided that this would be a good spot to produce the plants. And not only are we going to be producing the coffee trees are an important first step in building relationships in the community and increasing the economic viability of these crops. But in the long term, this nursery will also be producing native plants. We don't have a lot of native plants in the nursery right now because we don't have any documentation of the plant diversity that's appropriate to be producing in this area. So that's some work that Pablo, Patrick, and I will be doing next week, understanding what's there. And then that will help us start a monitoring protocol on certain trees and certain species that will like to collect seeds and cuttings to reproduce and propagate in this nursery. While I was there, I was gifted a guamo seed pod, which is a Inga species, and I ate all of the sweet fruit off of the seeds and planted 10 seeds. So we do have some native plants growing in the nursery right now, but it is mostly coffee right now. All of the coffee trees that we currently have growing are spoken for by farms in the community. So it is really something the community is excited about and wants. Here you can see our coffee trees germinating and doing really well. They were getting a little bit of sun damage, so we ended up putting some polysombra up. And as we move forward, I guess it's hard, right? This presentation is a little hard for me because we're very early in the process. I've been having these communications with the community and with Herbert for about 5 years, but we really just started doing this work last March. So in March, I came down for a month. I worked with the crew to build the nursery, get it about 50% constructed, and so I think we sowed 3,000 coffee seeds that week. But there's a lot of work to do and a lot of collaboration to be had, and that's one of the reasons I'm most excited to be here talking with you and collaborating with you all, is because I'm not an expert in agroforestry. I'm not an expert in the flora of Colombia, and I want to learn from you and learn alongside you as we build this project into something that the community can own. So there's a lot of work moving forward. There's a little bit of work that has been done. So yeah, next week we'll be going out on our first expedition to document plant diversity. I'm assuming that this will be the first of many plant collection specimen trips. We want to promote agroforestry. Like I said, I'm not an agroforestry expert, and I think in every community in the Andes, which I learned, it's just every valley and every little area has this completely different microclimate. And so I think it'll be really important to work directly with farms and see what exactly works for them. Which trees are going to benefit their coffee production, which trees are going to benefit diversifying their income streams, allow them to maybe grow cacao or vanilla or something of that nature, whatever they're interested in. We want to be in the community as a facilitator and supporter, not as someone that's coming in with all the solutions and telling people what to do. That's really important to me personally, but it's also really important to my institution, that this is community-led. At the end of this, replanting a forest is a process that's going to take many, many years. It's a project that I hope will keep going beyond my lifetime. And when I'm no longer there in the community, I hope the community can own these solutions that they came up with. So that's a really important aspect of the project to me. So it'll be really exciting to build a model of agroforestry that works specifically for this community. I think a lot of agroforestry promotion comes at a community with a lot of science that someone did in a country far away, and they come into a community and tell people what they need to do. But I don't know what they need to do in this valley, because this valley is a very unique place. So I'm super excited about coming up with that. And we want to give the community the opportunity to think about biodiversity conservation. We want to facilitate new jobs that keep the youth in the community. One of the community members that I've worked with he's 21, and he's the only guy left from his high school class that stayed in the community. And so, we want to create opportunities, viable opportunities for the youth to stay in this community and continue, the legacy of their family farms, so that these coffee producers don't age out and their farms go up for sale and giant corporations come in and farm them and deplete, the land or mine gold or, something that is an irreversible thing. You can see that in much of the valley here, it's highly agrarian. There's a lot of pasture. There's a lot of full sun exposure, and it gets hot. It gets hot because there's no trees, and that exacerbates insect problems. It exacerbates the coffee leaf rust. The coffee leaf rust is kind of like moving up in elevation as our climate warms. So it'll be really important for the long term of producing coffee in these regions to have trees to mitigate those effects, to cool these valleys, and to allow these crops to keep being grown there. I don't know, Patrick, did I skip over anything? Yeah. Here's the Espanol version of the slide for everyone. Sorry, I meant to click to that earlier. But yeah, those are kind of like the main things. We want it to be community-led. We want to give people the opportunity to make enough money to think about the future and not just think about the next harvest. A lot of these families are working 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. 6 days a week, and scraping by. So we want to figure out how we can diversify their incomes, how we can help them produce a coffee crop that goes for more money, so they don't just have to sell it to a big corporation, but that they can sell specialty coffee to the CD&T and get it out of this community and to the rest of the world. And in doing that, we hope to build these relationships that allow us to develop a model that in the end conserves biodiversity and increases habitat across this entire region. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer questions. Certainly.
I understand that you're building your own nurseries, and you're, I guess, are going to, for an expedition to understand the flora, the original flora, and maybe to get some seeds and planting by yourselves. But maybe how do you consider taking some advantage of the local nurseries, maybe in the region in Tolima? I know there are some nurseries.
Certainly.
Maybe local, and in some local organizations also, some natural organizations, something like that.
Certainly. So for the video, the question was, how can we, we are building our own nursery, but how can we take advantage of nurseries that are in the community already? That's definitely something I think that will be important in the future. We wanted to be able to create this nursery and create these plants without impacting anyone's livelihood. We didn't want to go to a nursery and say, we have this idea and we want to do it, and we're not really sure the exact outcome. We wanted to experiment. So we're going to make all the mistakes in the nursery that we've funded, and once we have a good model and we have a good understanding of propagation protocols and a soil mix that we can make with locally available ingredients, and once we have that model together, I think that's absolutely a job creation avenue, is supporting the creation of more local nurseries. It's very hard to travel around in this community, a lot of very narrow switchback mountain roads, and I don't want to have to, there's only so much space that this nursery is going to be able to impact before we need to set up a nursery somewhere else. And we would love to see a local family set up a nursery on their farm and have that as an income stream. Certainly.
Por lo poco que entendí, es un proyecto que está en implementación, pero sería muy interesante saber cómo se puede acceder a la información que se ha ido generando y sobre todo pues a los resultados más adelante. Pensando sobre todo cómo articular esto con estrategias que están cerca de áreas protegidas o iniciativas de conservación. ¿Cómo se puede configurar ahí alguna conectividad?
Someone help me out. Estoy tratando de aprender español. So going along with the community approach kind of idea, you are part of the community that I'm looking to lead those sorts of ideas. So we would absolutely love to see, this model be able to impact other natural areas or other communities. But for me specifically and our project, I think it's important not to get too big, but to really focus on this community and making it work in this community. Something I hope to do maybe 5 years from now is have a bit of a model, take that back to not just my institution, but my industry of zoos, aquariums, and botanical gardens. And not pressure, but encourage them to go to their local coffee roaster and meet a coffee producer. And to go beyond just plants, I'm a horticulturist, so I tend to focus on plants, but we want to understand all of the diversity here. So I hope as we move forward in the future, we can partner with university research departments and other scientists in Colombia to better understand bird diversity, insect diversity, fungal diversity, and that we can, work with those institutions and help facilitate, those trips and that understanding as well. So.
Que también uno de los objetivos es ir más allá de las plantas y poder pues, involucrar otros departamentos, no escuché exactamente de dónde, me imaginan desde el Zoológico también del Jardín Botánico, que estudien los insectos, hongos y otros grupos otros grupos biológicos. Pero creo que se nos perdió una parte de la respuesta y pregunta exactamente dónde podemos tener los resultados. Creo que eso es
Claro, porque es que digamos a nivel, por ejemplo, como diseño metodológico, independientemente de que no se tengan los resultados aún, parece interesante el abordar, ¿cierto? Y que también aquí hay otra gente investigando que eso puede de alguna manera articularse.
So maybe we need some part of the question that where we can get part of the results or something that is coming about the project.
Okay. Yeah, so all of the herbarium voucher specimens that we collect next week are going to come back here. And once we have them officially identified, I hope to come to this room again, give another presentation. I'd love for Pablo to come out to the community and present results. I don't currently have a website or anything set up to share results, but I hope that my institution will at least share things on social media. And as things move forward and we do gather information, I do see there being an internet resource to view those results. But ultimately, sure.
Entonces, pues algo importante es que las colecciones biológicas van a estar depositadas en el herbario. Juan Pablo va a acompañar, Juan Pablo es nuestro coordinador de Ibero, va a acompañar la expedición de la próxima semana. Esas colecciones van a estar depositadas en el herbario. Es decir, que todos esos registros pues, que van a ser muy importantes como para empezar a entender, bueno, eso lo estoy hablando yo. Entender todo este conocimiento van a estar allí. Y que todavía no hay una página web, pero que esperamos que la institución lo pueda realizar en algún momento. Todavía no está disponible. Pero que eventualmente también venir a dar ya una charla tal vez en un año o 2 años, con los resultados más concretos.
Ultimately, my institution is not going to own any results. The Colombian people will own the results. This community will own the results. The Medellin Botanical Garden will own the results. And so I'll look to you to tell me how I can help disseminate information that is useful to you. Did I understand it and answer it? Okay. Am I still dancing around the answer?
Pero bueno, creo que teníamos un comentario, perdón, que me salió porque ya quería hacer otra pregunta. Entonces, que finalmente los resultados no son de la institución, sino de la comunidad que va durante estos años también a aprender
pensando que cómo vamos, que estoy pues como interesada en entender cuáles son las variables como más de la ciencia que nos van a permitir o perdón, que les van a permitir a ellos entender como el objetivo nos dice cómo se recuperó el dosel del bosque a partir del enriquecimiento de estos árboles durante todos estos años, cómo lo van a medir, cómo lo van a monitorear a esa escala de paisaje del café, pero también a escala del ecosistema.
So, the Smithsonian Migratory Bird Program has a certification program called Bird Friendly Coffee. And Bird Friendly Coffee requires a certain stratified canopy, a certain amount of shade, and it has different parameters for certification. We're not pushing or requiring any sort of certification in the community, but as a technology, we will look at bird-friendly coffee as the technology for coffee agroforestry. In the coffee industry, the current highest ecological standard for coffee is bird-friendly coffee. But bird-friendly coffee is just a certification program. It's not actually going into the community and working with farmers and facilitating the creation of agroforestry farms. To become bird-friendly, one of the first requirements is to go organic, which can be very expensive. Organic certification is cost prohibitive for many people in the community. So bird-friendly coffee is kind of what we look at. A stratified canopy, epiphytic diversity, and I believe it's a minimum of 40% shade cover are kind of the standards with bird-friendly coffee. But we don't know if that's going to work for every farm in this community. So we don't want to come in and say, this is what you should do. We want to say, this is an idea towards sustainability, towards biodiversity conservation, and how can we use this information to make it work in this community and on this farm.
Y ya más concretamente, como no hay unas variables o un set de variables que van a medir, sino que es como una construcción, estoy entendiendo más por la comunidad, pero que han tenido en cuenta como la cobertura del dosel y la diversidad de las epífitas y otra variable que se me epiphyte diversity, shade cover, and what was the
A stratified canopy, a multi-layer canopy.
La estratificación del dosel. Son las variables que podrían, pero están como en una conversación con la comunidad como para imponerlas, sino que sea una construcción.
Yeah, it's easy to plant just one species of tree or 5 species of tree, and as we're talking about this, more things are coming up in my mind. Another recommendation for bird-friendly coffee is a minimum of 12 different tree species on a farm, and with those different canopy shapes and different mature heights. You want the understory trees, you want a mid-story, but you also want those emergent trees that grow up above the canopy and create this multi-layered effect that allows for all of the different bird species and insects and epiphytes that grow at the different levels and exposures. So.
Gracias. Entonces, pues como que en ese mismo concepto, en la certificación de estos sitios para amigables para aves, pues ya hay como unas definiciones muy estándar, que es, por ejemplo, al menos 12 especies en ese cultivo, que le agregan como diversidad de formas, pero también de multiniveles o estratificación. Pero entonces, bueno, esto ya es mi parte. O sea, lo interesante es que están usando algo que ya los cafeteros deben usar para certificarse, pero que también puede servir para monitorear el cambio a mediano y largo plazo. Gracias.
Any other questions? Sure.
I'm just curious more for what are your approach or institutional approach to work with this community? I mean, you have a grant that allowed you to in Colombia this year, but also this year. What is the logistic and the funding behind the project?
I have an.
Le estoy preguntando como cuál es, o sea, qué hace posible que ellos estén acá. ¿Cuál es la logística, la beca, los fondos? Como curiosidad, ¿cómo pueden venir y trabajar con la comunidad?
I have an incredible and rare situation in the conservation industry. My institution takes $1 for every ticket and puts it in an account for conservation. It takes $4 for every membership and puts it in an account for conservation. We have almost 1 million visitors a year, and we have, I think, 25 or 30,000 members. And that gives us a pool of money to support conservation projects all over the world. So one of the functions of my department, you want to go ahead and, before I'm just going to keep rattling on if you, okay.
Pues es una estado como wow, porque es muy interesante, porque el jardín botánico, pues el zoológico es un jardín botánico. Por cada boleta que las personas entran y sienten que bien entra más de 1 millón de personas al año, dan $1 a un fondo de conservación y eso les permite desarrollar estos proyectos.
Tienen los miembros que también aportan.
Los miembros aportan $4.
Y los miembros aportan $4 al año. The members
$1 per ticket and $4 per membership.
membership, por la membresía, es decir, las personas que pagan por poder entrar al jardín todo el año. Es una estrategia súper interesante.
So part of what my conservation department does, which is just 3 of us, but we do engage other staff members across our institution, is we look for good conservation projects that we can make a large impact in. We don't necessarily look for, someone with a $10 million budget. We look for someone that we can really take them to the next level with a relatively small grant. And we build those personal relationships with those field partners. We do have a couple of projects that are in-house, but this is kind of the first of its kind project for our institution, where we kind of, own the project and support it. So while I am working with CD&T and now working with Medellin Botanic Garden, we're not getting grants from anywhere else. We're raising all of that money in-house, and that allows us to have more freedom and experimentation in this process, which I think in the long run is going to really, really benefit our outcomes.
Entonces, pues que digamos que este tipo de soporte les permite tener mucha libertad y también experimentación. Retomándolo pues desde el principio, que generalmente van a proyectos más pequeños, que incluso entendí esto es por 5 años, pero digamos que es como particular, es el primero que adoptan totalmente desde la institución.
So typically, some examples are we work with the Okapi Conservation Project in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. We support their operations in the Okapi Reserve there in the Congo rainforest. We support the salary of a wildlife protection unit in southern Sumatra that removes snares and protects some of the last habitat for wild Sumatran tigers. And so we meet these projects a lot of times based on the collection that we have at the zoo. If we're going to have these animals in captivity, then we should be supporting their conservation in the wild. So a lot of times we match our collection with what we want to impact in the wild. It's different though for plants. We don't have endangered plant species in our collection right now. We're working on that, infrastructure and stuff like that. But because we are a zoo and garden, the horticulture side of things has been really supported by the conservation department, and we've been encouraged to find conservation projects. So I started supporting and partnering with Florida plant conservation projects. And we do surveys and monitoring, seed collection, things like that for a few different endangered species in Florida. But because we support so many projects globally, it just kind of matches our mission to expand out and find some international plant and habitat projects as well. So I was fortunate enough to be in the position to bring this project to my supervisors and gain support for that. And I left this part of the equation out, but in February I went to the Botanical Bridges Congress in Cartagena, and that's where I met Pablo. I thought it would be really important as we kick off this project to try to go to a botanical garden conference and see, if I can network and meet the appropriate people to consult on this project. And I was very fortunate to meet Pablo and other folks from the Medellin Botanic Garden, Alvaro. And I'm so excited to be working with you all and feel supported by you all and your expertise on your native flora. So.
Bueno, entonces como es zoológico, jardín botánico, pues mucho del foco de investigación y nos dio varios ejemplos. Han estado en el Congo, en una reserva, un animal que creo que se llama Café, en el Congo, y eso les permite tener pues como el soporte de las personas, de todas las personas que están involucradas en la conservación de especies amenazadas que están in situ, pero que hacen como el match, que hacen el enlace con las colecciones vivas del zoológico y del jardín botánico. También en Sumatra, con varios animales, un tigre, no escucho muy bien los animales, pero que toda esa base pues está muy centrada en la colección del zoológico y que ha sido una oportunidad muy interesante a partir de marzo pues poder haber empezado este proyecto gracias a la relación que entabló el Congreso de Jardines Botánicos en Cartagena con Álvaro, con Juan Pablo, y allí se ha dado esta colaboración, que es algo bien particular porque el Jardín Botánico no tiene colecciones amenazadas, pero que el grupo de horticultura y conservación están trabajando como para consolidar como esa línea, pues encontrar proyectos que también están trabajando con Florida en monitoreos o inventarios y colección de semillas, también como asumo para llenar ese vacío